If it is Monday, and by my watch, it actually says that it is, that means we are coming at you with work week weather forecast. And Landon Idlet, who is divulged to me offline, of course, I hope he's not going to beat me up for saying this, but asthmatic, or at least was in his younger years. Let me ask, like, real quick, Landon, that's interesting. So moving to Guam and dealing with our climate out here and everything like that. I know many people who have like asthma here. They're big fans of albuterol. If you don't mind sharing, how was that experience for you, and have you still struggled with it?
Yeah, asthma is something that my brother and I both grew up with since a very young age. We were both diagnosed with asthma, I think at 4 or 5 years old. And so we had it all through school growing up. I did grow out of it in college. I joined a rowing team and I did sports for my last year of college. And it seemed like I had grown out of the asthma. I had no problems. And sometimes I would self-induce an asthma attack before racing and breathe it out instead of using the inhaler.
Hmm.
That usually worked pretty well. And so for about a decade, I had no problems whatsoever. My first couple years on Guam, no symptoms of asthma. But after several years, the asthma started creeping back in again. And of course, my doctor back home said sometimes it happens as you get older, it starts to show symptoms again later in life. And so the peak period for asthma for me is typically starting around August and September, and it starts to get worse through the following months until I have to go to a doctor for treatment, get prescriptions, and then I can breathe it out through the holiday season, have a fine dry season, then it starts cycling back in August, September. It's been almost by the clock the last several years around wet season. So I'm not sure if it's the increased humidity, moisture in the atmosphere, maybe mold and mildew in the buildings with the
Exactly.
moisture.
And this is interesting. And again, apologies if like I violated HIPAA by basically like telling people like about asthma about you. I mean, we're cool and everything. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
I'll send you some Christmas cookies, right? There you go. But it is kind of interesting. And a little known fact is that when you guys issue your heavy weather reports, very often they'll have like this little tagline from Civil Defense, and it says, "Oh, by the way, if you are someone with respiratory illness concerns, you might want to bring those up to your primary physician immediately in case the weather does get bad." So I mean, this is a known thing.
Yeah, and I think medications and prescriptions in general, when it comes to weather emergencies, make sure you have those prescriptions on hand. And we think of typhoons where you have days and days in advance of preparation. But an earthquake, what if we had an 8.3 earthquake today, this afternoon, and renders everything shut down? We have damage and debris. Are you going to have enough medication now to get you by for the next several days or weeks while we get our back on our feet again? And so these earthquakes, they can strike without any warning. So it's always a matter not to get behind on your prescriptions. Make sure you have those supplies handy in your house for yourself, your family members, elderly parents, for example. So always plan ahead. And comically, I think back to March 2020. Did you have enough toilet paper in your house?
There you go. And
Some people
maybe
probably did not.
about 7 months ago, right after Typhoon Mawar hit, we were getting inundated with with DMs and messages, as I'm sure you were too, and your team over there at the NWS, with people were saying, "Okay, I have a diabetic member of my family. How long is the insulin going to be good for?" And like the good a buddy of ours, Dr. Dolores Lee, was sharing that.
Yep.
Okay, and Dr. Erica Alford also over at American Medical Center, she's like, the insulin actually lasts is good for longer than you think and everything. But yeah, you certainly want to bring
Yeah.
that to the doctor.
Yeah,
Besides,
and that's exactly. I always plan ahead. Make sure you have supplies of cash, medication, food, water, uh, pet food. And we have
there you
something
go.
careening quickly at us right now. And are you ready? Because we're 14 days away from Christmas. Are
Yeah.
you ready? This is like we're like in warning threshold right now.
Hey, Santa make sure that he takes care of all the reindeer and everything. He's got food for them, so you might as well take care of your little fur babies as well. By the way, everybody, we had no idea we were going to talk about like about asthma and everything, but certainly good because that's planning ahead. What we'd like to do on this segment now is actually take a look back, because it's never too early to do one of these like retro shows, right? And then just say, I
Yeah.
remember Len interviewing at the beginning of the year, right after New Year's, and we said, what are we looking forward to this year, and what are you projecting? How did those estimations with you as a professional weather watcher, how did they line up? Certainly Mawar was on
It
everybody's
was an
mind.
interesting year, and we were talking about the 3 years of La Nina transitioning to INSO neutral around about a year ago, and then that INSO neutral quickly transitioning to El Nino, it did exactly that. And so we were thrust right into a moderate to strong El Nino for 2023. And by pattern, many people, global tropical meteorologists and climatologists, expected a much busier tropical cyclone season for the Western North Pacific, specifically the Mariana Islands. And so I'm going to turn my screen around. This was our outlook that we put out back in late June. This was supposed to be released late May,
I
but this
remember that
was
well.
delayed by a month because of Typhoon Mawar. And so my concern was maybe that's a bad omen if the tropical cyclone outlook is delayed because of a typhoon, but it was anything but. We were looking at the possibility of 5 to 8 tropical cyclones. And of course, this one right here, this is tropical depressions, tropical storms, and typhoons, 5 to 8. And this next slide showing those tropical storms and typhoons, 3 to 5. And so this first chart, we were way above reality with what happened this year because, as I've stated recently in the last several weeks, there are no guarantees with weather and climate. And so you might think you have something pegged pretty well based off the climatology patterns and other seasonal trends, but Mother Nature, you cannot put a guarantee on Mother Nature. She will do what she wants to do. And so this year was one of those seasons where we were very short. And so 3 to 5 typhoons for Guam and the CNMI, somewhere in the region, not necessarily direct hits. We really came up with just 2. And so this was the reality of what we had this year. We had Super Typhoon Mawar come barreling through the Mariana Islands and then Typhoon Balaban. So compared to the last 3 years, this has been a very busy year for the Mariana Islands, but it wasn't that busy by climatological standards. So we did have 2 direct hits by tropical cyclones this year. One of those was fairly significant, Typhoon Mawar, and we dodged the bullet with Balavan back in October. And so all things considered, we fared very well regarding tropical cyclones because we could have seen a lot more. We could have been in a season like 2015 with 6 to 8 tropical cyclones barreling through the Mariana Islands.
What do you as scientists do, Landon, to try and always improve upon, the accuracy of your predictions? Because again, you guys have, like terabytes and terabytes, probably even petabytes of like data that you can draw from, and you can use, statistical techniques and make these inferences and everything. But like, because science marches on, what are you guys always doing to make sure that you can make more accurate predictions and hopefully be able to narrow the gap and say, like, we can tell, a day out?
Well, I think it's the phrase that we came to know and memorize by heart the last several years. Trust the science. My phrase is question the science. And so that's what meteorologists, researchers, and climatologists will have to be doing after 2023 is what happened? What happened this year that nothing happened? I mean, we've had 17 tropical cyclones in the Western North Pacific. Why? We should have had 28 or 29 by this time of the year. This is one of our slowest seasons on record since World War II for tropical cyclones in the Western North Pacific. And so we do have to go and question why, what happens, do the studies, do the research, and then see how it pans out in future seasons that are similar. And so some of the speculation is 2014 was expected to be a robust tropical cyclone year, and it really didn't pan out. But the following year, 2015, was action-packed. And so there's some speculation maybe 2024 could be a busier year for us in the region.
Oh, please don't say that.
We'll have to see. And so I've
I want
already
to go to
reached out to
Disneyland, man. I have a trip planned.
Yeah, don't cancel your trips at this point.
yeah. Look who's
But
talking. You've got a cajillion like frequent flyer miles just in the last fiscal quarter. I'm trying to go see Mickey Mouse just once.
Yeah, I stress every time I'm about to travel because I'm looking at the long ranges. Is there going to be something spinning up in the region? Do I have to come back? Do I need to cancel? Because I don't want to be off of Guam if there's a threat to any of the islands in the region. And I will be flying out on Friday this week for actually a vacation, not a work trip. So I'm excited about that. I'll join you Monday from a different landscape, and you have to guess where I am. But we're going to have us ask those questions. I talked to the Climate Prediction Center out of Washington, D.C. last week, and we're discussing the typhoon outlook for next year. And we're going to probably do a joint release with the Atlantic Basin. So this is going to be a huge boost for us because I'm trying to get this outlook to be an official product of NOAA because traditionally it's just been a product out of this office, this region. And I'm trying to leverage it and get more weight with the agency involved. And so then that's a big stress off of me if CPC can be doing this outlook. But we're going to be looking at the whys, the what happened, and how we can improve our metrics because, yeah, there are no guarantees. And I've always told people the outlook is a feel good product for what we can generally expect to see in the year ahead. But it doesn't change your preparedness actions for the year because we could look at a La Nina and expect a slow season, but one storm could wreck an island, or we could look at El Nino in a busy season and we don't take a single hit. And so you have to keep that in mind.
And let's conclude with this because I remember speaking to you, and we actually had, this is a similar conversation we had offline. But I was asking, how is your team? This is like 4 days after Mawar passed, and you said you told like a lot of the rookies, and you do have like a lot of young meteorologists on your team, and you told them, okay, guys, they don't all get this bad, but they could also not all be this favorable.
Yeah, so that's exactly it.
That's very pragmatic.
Yeah, we always have to keep that in mind. And when it came to our assessment of Mawar, I was very forceful with the wording and getting this out to the public with the press conference because I don't want people in the southern Guam saying, well, we survived a super typhoon, we can handle anything, because Marito did not get a super typhoon. They had tropical storm force conditions at worst. The strongest winds were all up in northern Guam. So I want people to have that perspective of the reality of the wind distribution with tropical cyclones. The southern Guam avoided a catastrophic situation when this Mawar shifted a little bit northward and then barreled into northern Guam. So the south,
you're talking to a Geo resident here, bro. So I know what that's all about.
Yeah. Now, weather ahead for the week, not bad at all. There are some threats and rumors and speculations in the long range models, and you might be seeing that on some social media trends. But we are not looking at any kind of threatening weather for Guam or the CNMI. It's going to be full-blown dry season, at least through this week into the weekend, maybe up into Christmas. That would be breezy, mostly sunny, and mostly dry with just those light showers that come rolling through here quickly and get things wet and move right on by. But we're going to be watching some action down in Micronesia that's going to be moving westward. But for Guam and CNMI, not that bad, but play it safe if you're in the water because the surf will be elevated along north and east-facing exposures, possibly a high risk of rip currents later this week. So beautiful week ahead. Great time to get your Christmas shopping done. Maybe I can do mine at some point.
You know what? Santa Maria and Camelin Day was last Friday, but our Blessed Mother continues to watch over us and provide us like good weather. Okay, final question. I've said this a cajillion times already. Final question. Are you guys going to do the Santa tracker leading up to?
Oh my gosh. I know NORAD, they usually do that. Yeah. We have not formally participated in the weather service, but maybe we'll communicate some stuff on social media about that. So stay tuned. Stay tuned.
All right. Spoken like a true television professional. Landon, we wish you and your team over there at the National Weather Service, of course, the happiest of holidays as always.
Yes. Merry Christmas and see y'all next week from a surprise location.
All right. Hopefully, maybe a few time zones away. We'll never know. We'll catch you next week.
Let's just say I'll be wearing boots.
Okay.